In this episode of the Encounter Report, 4 monarchs carefully plan out their chibi forms. There's Axelrod, your humble narrator, Kazlo25 the Dog Whisperer, Alessandri, and Aaron Alchemy. Everyone played the game blind on the PlayStation 4, and all data shown is exclusively the base game up to the final boss, so no post-game or DLC. And with that out of the way,
prepare to be boarded!
Battle types are up first, and most notably, we have our respective buckets that we're all in. For myself and Alessandri, all or the majority of our playthroughs were all visible with the exception of gathering King's Guilders at odd hours of the day. Kazlo25 and Aaron Alchemy opted to do many of those activities off-screen, which included side quests and tainted monsters. This marks the large disparity between our playthroughs, but even with that in mind, everything that was caught on camera still resulted in a very close encounter percent for random encounters. So even though some stuff was done off screen, we were all still in a similar ballpark. On the battle locations end of things, it's important to clarify that there are 2 distinct types of encounters in Ni no Kuni 2 Revenant Kingdom. The first are dungeon encounters, where the timer started when the words 2 arms appeared on screen and ended when victory faded away. The other type is world map encounters, which are much more traditional and have transitions going in and out of them. With all of that said though, not much has changed here in terms of percentages either. We still have our buckets and there isn't much deviation from that. With combat types, we can see how everyone was approaching fights. Ni no Kuni 2 Revenant Kingdom can clearly be categorized as a game light on difficulty, as every single one of us fell many levels short of the final boss and had little to no struggle. Despite that, many of us incurred deaths to some degree. For myself, the Bastion fight in Broadleaf caught me by surprise, while for Kazlo25, his only 2 deaths are actually the very start of the game where Roland and Evan are sneaking out of the castle. He got caught twice, and got crushed for it. Aaron Alchemy also got a death in that section of the game, but there were several moments where I thought she was actually going to be victorious. Her last 2 deaths were to the tainted monsters that weren't playing nice. Now for Alessandri, he earns the coveted no deaths medal, and despite coming close on a few occasions, he was the only one to come out unscathed. For subtypes, there isn't much going on here thanks to the lack of player-advantaged ambushes. Although, all of us still incurred a surprise back attack or 2, or 10, and lived to tell the tale. If we also took this information at face value, we could say, oh wow, only Alessandri did grinding and it was just 2 encounters to top off a level. Well, that's where things get interesting. As mentioned earlier in battle types, Kazlo25 and Aaron Alchemy opted to do many things off screen, and when they came back, many levels were acquired that wouldn't normally be attributed to side quests. Kazlo25 gained up to 19 levels off screen and Aaron Alchemy gained 36 levels off screen. In fact, 12 of those levels she acquired before she could build a kingdom, and thus no side quest to partake. Next up is the level progression graph, where we get a visual representation of the levels everyone was at when they reached bosses. On the left, we have the levels, and on the bottom, many of the bosses in the game. Each boss takes up a rectangle in the graph, and within those rectangles, we have Evans levels for each participant. Lastly, the red shows the level of the boss. As is very evident, the level scaling for bosses gets very out of control, as the majority of us are under-leveled for those particular sections. In fact, there were only 4 instances where someone was over the level of a boss, and that was Aaron Alchemy on Wyvern Warlord, Mossy Monument, Incineraptor, and Cetus, where the highest lead was only 2 levels. Since all of us engaged in a plethora of side quests and tainted monster fights, it was very strange to see these level discrepancies. For myself, the biggest level deficit I faced was 16 levels down on the Horned one, while Kazlo25 and Alessandri were 12 levels down, and Aaron Alchemy 9 levels down from the same boss. Following that up is party composition, and I can definitely say many of us got baited by Bracken's healing spell. Based on recollection, I believe I saw Bracken's AI cast the spell once for myself and not a single time for anyone else, but perhaps I missed a few since the battles could get pretty chaotic. But for our final parties, I ended up with Roland, Bracken, and Evan, while Kazlo25 utilized the same composition. For Alessandri, he ended up with Evan, Roland, and Tani, while Aaron Alchemy had Evan, Bracken, and Leander. In addition to that, I got curious about characters everyone was using as the party leader after seeing Alessandri play as Evan for a large portion of time. As a caveat, this only counts the character the participant is playing as the battle begins, and doesn't count mid-battle switches. So for myself, Roland had the majority share of 87% party leader for the grand total of encounters, and Kazlo25 had Roland for 99%. For Alessandri, he had 54% for Evan and 30% for Roland, while Aaron Alchemy played Evan 89% of the time. And then there's the final combined stats to close us out. Surprisingly, each one of us played the game on the release month and still managed to have both similar and different experiences all around. As an example, I tracked rare items that dropped in battles, and while Kazlo25 and Aaron Alchemy's numbers won't be very accurate, I still found it fascinating. For myself, I had 40 blues, 18 reds, and 5 purples. Kazlo25 had 17 blues, 15 reds, and 1 purple, while Alessandri had 47 blues, 21 reds, and 4 purples. Aaron Alchemy had 10 blues, 13 reds, and 3 purples. Considering our playtimes, it seems like each of us likely would have had very similar numbers if we got to see everything. And that's everything for the Ni no Kuni 2 Revenant Kingdom Encounter Report. I hope you visit everyone's channels and social media to praise them for all this wonderful data. With another report done, I think we can finally lay an age-old debate to rest. Cats won't gamble your fortune away and thus are more responsible than dogs. Thanks for watching, appreciate it, see you on the next video.